Hello, class. It is Tuesday, October 28th, and I hope everyone's either had a great Tuesday for those out east or are about to have a great Tuesday. Today, I'm sharing with you this video to check in with you between our two class sessions. Yesterday, we had a set of small group meetings, and they all went really great. Everyone shared and had really good progress, talked about their issue at length. We had good discussions within our teams, and I got a really good feeling that we're off to a good start and that there are a lot of really solid ideas. There are questions still to be asked, questions to figure out in terms of what this brand is going to be, how it'll be approached, how will we solve some of these issues that we've all brought up. And we're going to work on that this week. And I just wanted to give a little in-between session here so that when we meet tomorrow in our individual meetings, we can have a productive session and you can continue forward with your project in a positive way. So for this is week 9, and a big part of this in terms of next steps for your independent project is to really begin to understand and define your brand strategy. Like I said in the beginning of this project, I really wanted to tap into all of our entrepreneurial sides of our brains, if we have a side for that, and to really begin to see design as an innovation process, and to see it as something that we have the power to create, not just visuals, not just using typography or color or form, but we have the ability to transfer those talents and those techniques into thinking about structures within programs and systems, and how we can create something that is realistic and addressing real life needs. And this is what we're doing this week, working on how we can kind of create a model for what our brand can be and how it could approach addressing a social cause or an issue. So we're going to be working on defining your brand strategy further. And that's going to mean kind of figuring out what it is you want your mission to be. It involves creating a sort of mission statement that states that, and that'll lead towards naming your brand, coming up with a name that will cover what you're doing, but not labeling what you're doing, but rather creating something that has a certain message in it, that is practical, but also is something that is attractive, even has maybe a sense of mystery that you can then build on and utilize how you design your logo, and then more importantly, how you design your full brand to be able to get people to understand what your message is. And I think it's important that it be a positive version of your name. And I would advise being not going towards names that start with stop, or don't, and be more positive and look at it from a solution point of view. And then to further, figure out that personality, which I'm advocating for an optimistic personality, let's go towards the techniques we learned in our rebranding project and begin to create a set of mood boards utilizing research, looking at visuals to start to build a palette and to start to set a tone for what our brand's going to be about. So creating a mood board that can help define the brand personality, help define what this brand is about, to give a sense of it with photography and illustration, kind of tell a story. And then also to start using research to create an inspiration mood board that helps define our design, looking for design techniques, things that would inspire us towards how we want to define both our logo and just our overall design palette, and look at how to create our brand standards overall, the kind of typography we want to use, the kind of colors, and also to help inform us in how to design our logo, which is kind of our first next step. And then also for this week, I didn't really talk about this last week, or yesterday, I mean, but our workshops are now resuming, and we're going to have 2 lectures, or I'm sorry, 3 lectures. I put 2 down there, 3 lectures, and an exercise around the topic of digital design systems. This has been posted in the assignment on Canvas, and I believe I posted it a couple of weeks ago, and I mistakenly thought it was a beginning back when we were starting independent projects, and then it got put on hold. So that's there. There are 3 videos and then an assignment that you should be working on by Friday, which will be due on Monday. So jump back in on that. There's only 2 of these left this week and next week. So let's get that in. If anyone hasn't finished any past assignments, I urge you to do that. The doors are closing. So I want to next talk about, and a lot of this you guys are already doing and have a good handle on, but I just kind of want to give a couple of examples of how to think about structuring your brand. Because I know there are some questions, like when you say the word brand, it kind of implies a consumer product or a service or something that's more market driven. And then when you look at the idea of a social cause or being on a mission to affect change, you don't necessarily think of brand. So how does this work? So one model to look at is just the fact that an advocate or an organization that's on a mission to advocate for change and any kind of social mission, that can be considered a brand. So yes, the Salvation Army or Greenpeace or Charity Water, these are all brands in themselves. So you can have one model that begins with this idea of looking at your social cause and structuring your strategy to be in a hierarchy, so that you start with this idea that the social cause and the fight to make that change is the brand that you want to kind of put at the top of your hierarchy, at the top of your pyramid. And that's maybe, I'll call that maybe the more traditional, more obvious model. And I want to start with the idea of it being kind of a traditional structure, but as we flow down, I want the approaches and techniques you use to affect social change to begin to become more innovative, and then to move more into this kind of more brand within the market, creating something that people want in order to help make the changes that you want. So create a brand that addresses a social cause. So that would be the model of creating a brand that kind of does what other organizations are doing to help change the environment, or help stop depression, or help put a spotlight on whatever it is that you're doing. So that, that's a good place to start. It's not that you're depriving yourself of potential innovation just because you're starting from a more traditional platform. So that's where you would start with that. And in doing that, it's about creating that mission statement for what your social cause is going to be about. And if you're doing this, it might be that you're looking at it from a unique perspective. If you're looking at the environment, maybe you're looking at doing that within a certain region of the world, or maybe you're looking at doing that within a certain demographic, and being more specialized than other efforts have been. So a mission statement, and then creating a name for that organization, and then working on the logo, which is what we should be doing as our next step. From there, you can kind of build that into more of a traditional structure, where you then go, okay, now that we have an organization, now that we're this foundation or we're this group, we're going to create an awareness campaign that shines a spotlight on this issue and begins to target our audiences towards understanding what it is that we want them to know and what we want them to do. So that could come in the form of ad campaigns or social media efforts, PR strategies, public events, merchandise, and all those things are traditional ways of communicating, or platforms to work in. And you should use them in traditional ways, but also I want to encourage you to look at each of these categories in in as innovative ways as possible. Like, how do you use influencers in social media? Like, who are these influencers, and how can they be unique influencers to bring attention to a topic that may not be understood by their followers. So what I mean by that is that if you're trying to create a kind of a group of influencers, it might not be that you're looking for influencers who are advocates for your cause on the face of it, like the well-known people, the people who are known for speaking up, but you might want to look for influencers who have followings and specialties, who have different talents or different voices, and that will be willing to speak about the issue you have them, of course, be interested and passionate about it, whether they become passionate about it because of you reaching out to them, but see that as a better way to do it, where you speak to an influencer who normally talks about another subject to their audience, but now can introduce their audience to that subject. So that's kind of a way to be innovative within a traditional methodology. So awareness campaign built around this idea of a brand that's about this social issue. And then a targeted program, and I'd say here with specialized groups. So it kind of goes like you've made this kind of awareness campaign. Now, how can I go into very specific places where there's opportunities to communicate to people? So if you're doing something health related, it'd be obvious to say, like, I'm gonna put a program within a doctor's office, or I'm gonna do it within schools and utilize the school medical staff or the nursing outlet they have there. And then, of course, within the idea of specialized groups, look at that in an innovative way as well. If you go into schools and you're doing something about health, maybe go beyond the idea of having something at the nurse's office and create a program where there's a school dance, and that school dance is sponsored by this cause that you are advocating for, and bring awareness to it. And it's something that, like, you're transforming over to the idea that now let's give, instead of looking at like students must know this, let's think about it in the idea that what will students want to do and what will they respond to? And if it's something like an event like that, then you create something that works within in a different way. You kind of reverse the flow. And then the great thing about something like creating a model like that within a single school is that it can scale to any school or most schools, and be an idea that you can then create a program that can go nationwide because it works within what's a standard setup, a school. So think of that in terms of targeted programs, specialized groups. Also, this idea of brand partnerships came up a lot yesterday. I think that's vital. Particularly if you're not creating a brand that's a consumer brand, if you're not starting from what will be Model 2, which I'll explain next, look at it like, how can I create a brand, or how can I create a partnership with a brand that's already out there with customers or followers? How can I attach myself to that brand, create a special program, utilize the money they make and the need that most brands have to want to be socially active, to want to express their own mission to do good in the world. Many brands are getting on board with this idea of utilizing some of the profits they make towards a goal. So what are brand partnerships that you could put together? And again, with this idea, this model works across the board. What are the obvious things? What are the obvious brands that you could connect with, and what are ones that are more surprising and different, but still make sense for what your cause is? So if you're, for example, doing something on domestic violence against women, and if you're doing brand partnerships that connect with brands that are women's products and products that will help spread the message to women, of course that's obvious and that's a good thing. But if you think about it a little deeper and say, well, the perpetrators are typically men, so let's try to create awareness to communicate the urgency of this message towards that market, and you create a program for the NFL or for some kind of men's brand. Or if you even think further and say, well, if I really want to affect change, then, and if the problem are men, let me try to get ahead of it and start to create a program that speaks to boys about the importance of how to treat others. So then you begin to become more proactive in how you see your brand partnerships. So these could become these industry focused campaigns that you're within a certain group. If it's like gamers, you're doing a campaign within, doing a domestic violence campaign within the gamer community. And you do that not by resisting or being judgmental towards gamers, but by becoming part of their culture, and you create a game or you create something, a program that involves competitions for gamers that has this message as sort of the underlying platform. And then it could lead to this idea of creating a product, creating a product that's related to your cause, that the idea of this branding now starts to take place in terms of creating something that's designed for the marketplace, that's designed for a target audience to kind of give them what they want at the top level, but then also connect it to your cause in some way that will make it kind of a fashionable thing to have or something that people need, but also be something that they know that they're helping to do good. So it's the idea of like making something that will help people who are generally good, who want to help, who aren't the frontline advocates who are passionate about it, but somebody who knows if they buy something that's cool and hip or useful, that they're also doing good, and that's like an added bonus. So tapping into that, I think, is really important, instead of assuming that it's just about getting people who are passionate about your cause. So I want to share an example of a deck. There we go. That sort of follows through on this model. And this cause was the cause of dyslexia, which is a learning disorder, which I think everyone's pretty much familiar with. Kind of this ability to get the information that you need at the right time, or to mix up information when trying to read. It's mostly like this literacy issue, but it's also an issue that has nothing to do with a person's intelligence. That people with dyslexia are actually oftentimes more intelligent. But it's a stigma that's out there, and it's kind of not that much is known about it. So, and this is her final deck. So she kind of goes through and provides, like you guys have already done, provides the information and talks about what the cause is. So I'll kind of zoom past this, show some case studies. So she defines her target audience in kind of three parts: the parents of kids with dyslexia, their teachers, and then the kids themselves. And for you to be defining your audience now is very important, but do see that also as like a fluid thing. Like you may think it's a certain way now, and you may want to add on to it as you think through this, or you may want to pare it down or edit it and think about how you want to target this. And here's kind of what you're at right now, like creating the strategy statement, trying to figure out what you want your brand to do. Some more facts, and then and in this deck she didn't keep in the research pages for the design inspiration and the mood board, because it wasn't so much a logo project, but this is something you should be doing now, so it's not in here, but you should be doing it. So she started to look at this idea of dyslexia and maybe try to even stimulate the experience of struggling with looking at letters, and creating a logo type that matches up with that experience in some way, without it being like, without mocking it or making it a struggle or making it clever because she's a designer who can use type, and just kind of doing a simple sort of message with the type. And then this idea of a tagline, I think this is something you should be considering now as well. Kids with dyslexia and those who stutter and slur their speech because it's too early. Kids with dyslexia do it a different way. That's her tagline. So right off the bat, we kind of jump right into the sort of innovative thinking, and don't think it was simply a matter of making a logo and then just assuming that this is what you're going to do, superhero. So this was a matter of like kind of thinking about her audience, understanding that there's with kids, kind of younger older kid age that she has as her target audience. It was about like connecting with them in a language they speak in, and tapping into this superhero kind of thinking, and creating these yupsters. And oh, I forgot to say here. So here, not only is there this logotype, there's this name. So dyslexia up. So dyslexia, kind of like where you're like dyslexia. Yes, I have dyslexia. Yep, like yep, I do, and I'm proud of it, and it's a good thing. So kind of like taking this downward kind of word dyslexia, like it's a defeat, and then turning the trajectory so it becomes a positive thing. So dyslexia up is kind of the concept, and not that you have to say it in that corny way, but it's kind of that's a demonstration of like an attitude within a name. So dyslexia up, and saying it loud and saying it proud. So again, that just good design coming out of your mouth was right there. Like I'm giving you a design just by talking about the name, and I want you to see yourselves as communication designers as that is part of your utility belt. You should be working with words in this way, and mastering that ability to fold that into your design. So all of this, from the words, the sounds, the colors, the type, the text in the tagline, that's all part of what you do. Okay, so back to this. So it's about creating these sort of superheroes that become kind of the hosts or the guests, or I don't want to call them mascots because they seem like real, but they're the mascots, I guess, of this cause. And considering the different genders and sort of diversity in culture, but can't have it all, I guess. And creating this just empowering posters that set up and create equity for these two characters, begin to like see them as like the spokespeople, and just having these short messages, and using social media. People with dyslexia see how things connect to form complex systems. So taking data about the attributes of dyslexic people and using that as the message, and then doing that as a series, and kind of again introducing this idea of this superpower duo, the Yupsters, and then creating promotions that go beyond social media, that go into the places where kids are. So whether it's within doctors' offices, pediatrics offices, or within toy stores, or within even arcades, if those still exist. Like looking at the idea of how can these characters begin to show up in like everyday places, beyond the doctor's office, like make them mainstream. And to make them mainstream, this idea also came of how to use kind of like television, and or just the idea of ads. It doesn't have to be TV. I guess they could be videos on social media, and having these Yupsters come in and save the day and create a series of ads that are kind of like narratives about being empowered by looking at your disability as a superhero power. But then to take it even further, and this is where it gets really smart, is that now that you've established these cartoon characters as the spokespeople, as kind of legit cultures in the character, they begin to infuse themselves within different popular programs for kids. So whether they show up in Arthur or Curious George or Wild Kratts or Let's Go Luna, or the appropriate age level that they wanted to target, like they become part of the programming. And of course, I want to encourage everyone to be as like, would they really do this in real life? I don't know. But it seems realistic. So don't feel limited by what you think might or might not happen. It's just as long as it's realistic. And I think this is very realistic. And then taking it into sort of thinking about how can we bring it into the home? How can we connect to a message? How can we make a message in a platform that, sits on the table in the morning every day? So looking at like cereal brands and connecting it with Cocoa Krispies and having them join in on the package design in the front, and then having them be part of the information in the back. So this is where you're really kind of going deep into the idea of utilizing a brand a brand's assets in a strong way within a campaign. All right, and then I'm gonna go a little faster here because this is taking a little too long. Of course, using switching audiences towards a more adult audience, towards the parents or future parents of dyslexic kids, and tapping into celebrities, creating a hashtag, I do it my way. Again, the idea of empowerment, and creating a campaign around that, utilizing influencers or celebrities, and then going into these kind of targeted areas. So for example, creating a program within schools that could be like a nationwide program. I think there's a Dyslexia Awareness Month already, so utilizing that a day in that month or a week in that month or an hour or 20 minutes in that month, to create a program that encourages teachers to talk about dyslexia, create merch. You can see the t-shirts here, and not that you have to go deep into how this program works, but you're kind of like, you're creating a program in a top line way. Like when you talk about this, you can suggest the kinds of things they can do, the activities they can have without getting into the minutia, but you should kind of see yourselves as creating a program. So in the schools, utilizing also, it's kind of like as an art program, because art is a place where dyslexic kids really shine brightly. So using art is sort of connecting that talent with a program that helps inform kids about dyslexia. And then it goes back to targeting actual kids with dyslexia and trying to create a community and to create an event, a Dyslexia Up event. And it's about like creating a place where kids can look up to other people who are successful, grown-ups or young adults, or even older kids or kids their own age, who are in the world doing things, being great in whatever way they are, and just having it be a place where you gather as a community and celebrate all the great things about being dyslexic. So even within this, it becomes kind of a brand in itself. So the Dyslexia Up event utilizes the brand standards you've already created, but you then begin to put together the pieces in creating the event posters and looking at it as how to have it be branded at the event, using kind of this TED Talks model, where or almost this kind of conference idea where you get together and get to hear about people's stories. And I don't remember what each of these people represented, but in this presentation, they all had a persona, I think they were all real people that she researched that said would be good to speak, and why. I don't know what it is right now, but the idea would be that you would explain why these people are speaking to help give a picture of how this event could be effective. And then sort of just talks about all the workshops that will be happening within the event and how it would kind of come together as a really effective way for kids to leave there feeling empowered and making lifetime connections with others who are dyslexic. Of course, utilizing everything into merchandise and creating like a strong graphic program around that. And, it's kind of like the fun part. And then also looking at it in terms of using commerce and connecting with Amazon to create a program that will help raise money towards this effort, and utilizing the structure Amazon already has in terms of how they do their charitable efforts, and have it be like an option for how shoppers can select how they can use their shopping dollars towards a charity. And then for sure, bringing it all together in kind of one visual at the end that shows what you're doing. So this is, again, this idea of taking this model one and bringing it to life in a way that really has various ways of reaching people on different parts of audiences that you identify. Okay, so model two, and it's not that there's only two models. I'm just showing you two kind of maybe extremes. Model two is kind of looking at it as you're creating a brand, and you're creating a consumer brand that offers a product or a service, but probably a product that meets the needs of specific customers. It's just in a way that any brand would do that. And that brand is kind of identified as a social enterprise is a word for that. A social enterprise being a company that offers a product or service that's marketable, that's out there for consumers to engage in, but that social brand is connected to a specific mission, um, and they advocate for something, and that they commit to have a portion of their profits donated towards their cause. So that's different than being the charity itself. Like a brand like this might donate to the charity that Model One um, is doing. But so let's see how this one works. So again, it's about thinking of this idea, what your product is going to be, what your brand's going to be, and then creating a mission statement, a logo, the touch points for it, and kind of doing that whole branding thing that we did earlier. And then to look at further deeper into that. So now that you have your brand established, how can you build a mission, a social mission program for that brand? So you have the identity, you have the product, and then you want to create targeted programs from the consumer brand. So it involves how do you say your message on the brand itself, on the product, if it's in the store, if it's online, how does that message come out? How do you create an integrated ad campaign that promotes your product, but also speaks of your mission, the right balance, utilizing social media and PR and public relations, public events, all in the same way. But again, you're kind of balancing between selling your brand and advocating for your product. And then supportive programs that address the issue. So again, it becomes, you do partnerships with existing charities, kind of the reverse of partnering with a brand. Do you partner with a charity and help them raise money and create events or do sponsorships, or create other kind of solution-based special projects? And I know that's kind of a vague thing to say, but that's because it's what can you do in the world you're in? What can you do with the brand you have? How can you utilize aspects of culture? Like think about like, what are people interested in? What's going to get attention? What's going to cause excitement? And you want your Model 2 idea to be about utilizing the excitement people have and making the purchases they make, in aligning themselves with products or ideas that are similar to their own personal values, and you want to use that power to make social change with the brand. And the best example of that, and I won't go through this because I've already gone through it, but is this campaign I showed you a couple of weeks ago, I think, where epilepsy was identified as the issue, and CBD treatment was kind of like the solution, but to make that more mainstream and to take on epilepsy by creating a brand that provided medicine that was CBD based, and mainstreamed it into the US and Asia. So kind of taking the cause of epilepsy and using a brand itself to promote that, or to help solve that problem, and then creating it into a full campaign, which I shared with you before. So both this and the epilepsy campaign are on the Google Drive for the class under the resources folder, among other there's almost 10 of them, I think, that could also help you get ideas towards how you can do it. But again, remember that all those examples are kind of based on campaigns and not so much brands. So it's similar but a little different. So that's Model 2, kind of like creating a brand. But again, there's plenty in between in terms of how you can approach your project. So let's talk about Wednesday. That's tomorrow. We're going to be having individual meetings and also using the time for you to work on your project. So it's not that you have a 10-minute amount of time tomorrow for class as when you talk to me, but I want you to utilize the time to be working on your project and to be working on your workshops. But I have a list here of the timings and the schedule. Again, it's just 10 minutes. So we'll just kind of dive right into it when each of us meet. I'll email this out and also put it on Slack. But if you can just be sure to be on your on the class Zoom channel at your time, and keep in mind if you're there and you're in the waiting room, it's because the person before you was talking too much. It wasn't my fault. And if you can just wait, hopefully I won't fall behind. But it's 10 minutes, and sometimes these conversations are really efficient and they can happen in 10 minutes, and sometimes there's suffering and weeping and gnashing of teeth involved to try to figure out what we're going to do. I don't think there's going to be a lot of that, but that might happen and we might fall behind. And I just ask for your patience. If you're in the waiting room, hang tight, I'll be there. So let's plan for that tomorrow, and we can keep moving forward with the project. I'll also post this as a formal assignment on Canvas at some point soon. But this is basically giving you what we're doing for the week. And next week on Monday, we'll follow the same model next week. We're going to have small group meetings on Monday with individual meetings again on Wednesday. All right, so I'll see you guys all tomorrow and for your small group meetings, and I look forward to it.